You're listening to Filling the Storehouse podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Stuart, and we want to walk with you on the journey to living the abundant life through faith, family, and freedom. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours. Together, achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to intentionally fill our storehouse.
What's up, Storehouse Tribe? Hey, this is Stu, and hey, I just wanted to hit on one of the tenets of this podcast, financial freedom. David and I honestly think that the best way to get to financial freedom is through real estate investing. We've been investing in real estate for quite some time, and one of the coolest things about real estate is the relationships that we are able to create. We basically use partners on every single deal that we do, both in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for our turnkey rental company, and through some of our bigger deals. You know, we've done some stuff, some commercial properties here in Colorado where we live, and we're looking to do more. So if that's something that sounds of interest to you, we'd love to kind of tell you what we got going on, what we're doing. We're looking for more partners. We love building relationships and having, that trust with our partners and the ability to offer opportunities to invest alongside with us. If that's something of interest, hey, reach out to us. We'd love to jump on the phone. We'd love to jump on a Zoom call, tell you what we're up to. You can reach out to us through social media channels. You can hit us up on LinkedIn. You can hit us up on Facebook. Well, hit up me on Facebook. Don't hit up David. You can send us an email. You can go to our website, Storehouse 310 Turnkey, and go to the Contact Us page. Send us an email at podcast@Storehouse 310 Turnkey. Any of those options, reach out. Let's talk real estate, and we'd love to tell you what we're up to. Enjoy this episode. Most importantly, go fill your storehouse. See you. David, how are you, buddy?
Stuart, I'm doing great. I'm fired up for today's podcast. We have Don on, and I'll tell you, it was, we were talking before we should hit record that I love, because of my personality and nature, I love those big, best ever conference type scenarios where you go around and you just talk all the time. So that really suits me.
You do like to talk a lot.
Networking, man. I don't know. I miss a lot of the presentations because I like to go out and talk, but Don was one that we went into the presentation. I don't even know why we're typically not both in most of them, but we both were in there, and I attribute it to the good Lord, but we both were in there sitting there, and Don started talking, and we looked at each other and like, hey dude, like this guy, we gotta pursue him and get him on the podcast because tons of value, tons of knowledge, real estate we're passionate about, but then you started really diving into your faith and your business and the bigger purpose to it and the 100X American dream and all that stuff. And we were just like, oh man, this guy, he's going to be good. He's going to be good. So,
yeah. And Don, before we, have you kind of introduce yourself, kind of a little bit further to that, David said, we go to these conferences, we go to these real estate conferences, and most people get up there, great speakers, great topics, but most of it is about 10X growth in your business, buying more assets, how much I have, and I'm driving this Ferrari and blah, blah, blah. And you got up here and was like, hey, it's not about that. It's about making an impact and giving back and serving and doing it for the Lord. And you just spoke to our hearts, man. So if you could give us a little background, what you're doing now, but even before that, like where you came from and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the kind words. So my name is Don Wenner, and I'm as you guys have already said, I'm a follower of the Lord. First and foremost, I'm a father, husband, and I'm also the founder of a company called DLP Capital. I started 16 years ago. Also, in the last couple of years, I've added author to my resume, and I wrote this book here called Building an Elite Organization, which is often when people want me to kind of talk about how you scale a high growth business and how you have tremendous growth and success, kind of like you said. I would certainly, I wrote a book on the topic of how you scale a high growth business. So certainly consider myself to have expertise there. But when I get the opportunity to come speak at events such as Best Ever Conference, I'd much rather talk about more important things. And I find myself talking about making an impact and leveraging these, God-given blessings and gifts and opportunities that we all of us here with that flag sitting behind your head there reminds us, right? We all live in this amazing country at this greatest time in history to be alive and been given such blessings and opportunities. And it's our responsibility to leverage those to make as big of an impact as we can. So I spend, love to kind of connect people to that. And that's led to me launching a podcast, not nearly as successful as yours has been here, called Impact with Don Wenner, that we've been getting up and running, focused on that. How do we all figure out a way to leverage whatever our resources are, whatever our God-given abilities, or the platform that we have the ability to shepherd to make as big of an impact as we can. And that's what I'm challenging myself and our 450 plus team members at DLP to do every day, is how can we make the biggest impact on as many lives as we can. So been a fun journey, and looking forward to digging in with you guys here today.
Yeah, man, that's freaking awesome. Like, so one, humbly, you just said, well, I just run about a 450 person, business.
No biggie, dude.
No biggie. That's pretty awesome. But, you kind of talked about, in your presentation, you talked about this thing called the 100X American Dream. And you started with like, hey, this is where everyone starts. This is what success looks like, or this is what people think success looks like. Personal wealth and success, but this is really what it's all about. And so if you could, man, just give us a brief synopsis of what that is. Like, what do you see the 100X American Dream really is?
Yeah, thank you. And so I need to first, kind of give credit here. So this idea of this 100X impact came from a gentleman named Lloyd Reeb. Lloyd he's a co-founder of an organization called Halftime Institute, which is it's kind of like it sounds silly, but almost like a secret society. And I say that because there are so many of the most successful, not just successful financially in career, but some of the most successful and incredible human beings to walk this earth, who've been a part of this community. And once you become a part of this community, it's you go through this journey of figuring out how to make 100X impact on your life. And you do this in a kind of a forum basis with other generally very, very successful individuals. So in my group, there's 7 of us. At least 3 of the members are billionaires, right? So from a financial standpoint, very successful, right? But the focus isn't about how we make more money or how we are more successful. It's how we make a 100X impact. But it's this incredible society. So to give you an idea, on Monday, a couple of days ago, I spent much of the day with David Weekley. So David Weekley Homes, top 10 home builder in America, 3-4 billion a year of revenue. He's a billionaire himself. But what's amazing about David, and I got connected to David through this group, 100X, which is a subset of Halftime. So Halftime is this big institute, and then they have this for those who really want to make an impact and kind of have the platform to do so, invest, kind of meeting together a couple days, 5 times a year, to really focus on how we do more good. And so David came and spoke with us via Zoom a while back, and I was so taken back. And I'd heard about his incredible philanthropy in the past, but I was so taken back that I reached out to him, and he agreed to meet up with me. And in fact, he actually flew back from Houston with me, and we got to spend hours chatting and learning from him. And to give you an idea, so he runs a company doing billions of dollars. He's a billionaire, and he's committed to giving 50% of his income and 50% of his wealth away. And he's been giving away 50% of his income for the past 30 years. And to give you an idea, last year he gave away $42 million. Awesome. So some real money, right? Yeah. And so I got to pick his brain about how he does so. He doesn't just write checks. Any money he gives, he makes sure it's scalable, it's sustainable, it's a hand-up approach, and he fully vets them himself and makes sure that this is place that he can get the biggest, ROI on his time and his effort and his philanthropy. And so it was an incredible experience. And he's a perfect example of somebody who, yes, he's built incredible wealth, and he could just focus on building lots more wealth. But he's focused on how do I make a biggest impact? And he uses his business, David Weekley Homes, as his platform to make an impact. That's where the revenue and the income and the credibility comes from, that he's able to make big of an impact. So that's similar to the approach that I've taken. And a lot of people join an organization like Halftime, or you read books like David Brooks wrote a book called The Second Mountain.
I'm reading it right now.
Hey, right? You're reading it right now, right?
I love it.
It's an awesome book. Yeah. And I've met David, great guy. And so a lot of people think, hey, I'm going to spend the first half of my life making a lot of money, right? Achieving success. I want to spend the second half of my life, doing good, right? And so I'm 37, and so I've been thinking about, like, I don't want to wait to the second half to do good, right? I got this platform today. I have, a big influence today. I have, a stage per se. People like a conference like Best Ever want me to come talk, right? I've got this influence today because of the organization I run and things we do. How do I do good today, and how do I make a difference today, and how do I make sure that I'm making a difference with all of my time, not just a little bit of my time? So, as I told kind of the story at the event, sort of, is a few years ago, I did what a lot of people do once they achieve, wealth. I went and set up a foundation, right? And so a few years ago, I set up a foundation, and we said, hey, we're going to give, all of our employees can give 1% of their time to ministry, to service projects, to whatever they want, right? And that's paid time, right? So encourage them to go do good. And we said, hey, we're going to give 0.25% of our revenue to ministry, to the foundation. We're going to give 0.25% of all the capital we raise to our ministry, right? And that, and the goal was, hey, as the organization grows, so does our giving, right? So does our impact. And that was really great. And all of a sudden now, we're giving away $1 million, $2 million a year, right? It's as the organization grows, it's doing what it was meant to do. But it kind of hit me a couple of years ago. It actually hit me when I had hit 400 employees. And when I hit 400 employees, all of a sudden it clicked in my head that I had people working 1 million hours a year under my direction, right? I'm directing 1 million hours of human time a year in my direct employees, right? And it hit me. I said, why would I want just 1% of that time to go to doing good things, right? Why wouldn't I want 100% of that time, right? Why would I just want to give $1 or $2 million away when I'm generating hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, right? Why would I just want to give away 0.25% of the capital raised when I'm managing billions of dollars, right? Why wouldn't I not want to have all of it do good? So we were already doing good, but we weren't as intentional about it. So we went back and we said, all right, how do we mandate that all of our investing makes a positive impact on this workforce housing crisis? How do we mandate to ourselves that we're doing good, and that's part of our business model, not a byproduct, that's part of the business model, that we do good with all of our capital, with all of our resources. So we still run the foundation, and we still do things from the foundation that we couldn't do from a for-profit business, but they work very, very closely together. And my focus in this idea of this 100x American dream is, we all learn here in America, this great American dream to achieve financial independence and be able to retire, which is, a relatively new concept, right? Retire and sit back and do nothing and be comfortable, right? And that's considered the American dream. And people from all over the world want to come here to have that opportunity, which is great. But for those of us who are here, realize that that's the table stakes, right? If you have the skills and the ability to achieve financial independence for yourself, to figure out a formula to generate success, why wouldn't you want to do more? And that's kind of the concept of the 100x American dream. Is the real American dream should be to help 100 other people live the American dream. And even better said, if you can motivate and inspire them to want to live 100x American dream, where not only they achieve the American dream, but they're helping others do so as well. And that's what we're focused on doing, and doing so in a way of making sure that we give credit and to where credit's due, to the Lord, and encourage people to stay humble and realize that, what's that great quote, right? To those that much has been given, much is expected, right? And try to remind ourselves that when we hopefully hit the pearly gates, right, we're going to be asked, what did we do with the gifts that were given to us, and be able to answer that we maximize those opportunities and those abilities. So that's what we're trying to do. We've chosen today in our current kind of mission and focus, we've decided on 4 areas of impact we're really focused on, because we feel these are the areas we have the skills and the ability and the platform to make a difference on, which is the affordable workforce housing crisis, the jobs crisis, which is the number one reason I wrote this book, Building an Elite Organization, is I believe with all the disruption, all the technology, all the innovation that's going on, that a lot of people are worried about all the jobs that are being replaced by technology, right? But it creates great opportunities for new jobs to be created. But who creates new jobs? Entrepreneurial businesses, right? People like us, right? So, but it's hard to grow a business, right? So that's what we wrote a book on, is how do you scale a high growth business? How do you employ and create jobs? The legacy crisis, which is what we call the shirt sleeves in 3 generations. The fact that those who achieve success in financial terms often have that wealth lost by the 2nd or 3rd generation due to not investing in the more important things of family and and education and communication with their kids. And then the fourth area we're focused on is what we call the happiness crisis. And, I've been hearing this term lately of the loneliness epidemic that in America today, which is basically what our happiness crisis is about, right? That we're at this highest levels of unhappiness and depression we've ever had. And it's people lacking connection and people looking for connection in places like social media, right? Where the first thing what they're basically trying to do is replace the connection with the Lord through some sort of worldly connection. And so there's no way to replace, connection with the Lord. But then second to the connection with the Lord is people want to be connected to a worldly purpose or mission or something bigger than themselves, right? And used to be connected to the company you work for and you stay there for 30 years and you feel that's part of your identity and you're connected to the goals of this organization. That's gone for a lot of people today. And I believe it's our job as leaders of organizations to help connect people to feeling that they're part of it, making an impact, part of a purpose, a mission bigger than themselves, where they can feel they're part of something, right? We've all heard probably these stories of people who go into assisted living facilities or senior houses and they go there and they die quickly because they don't feel they have a purpose. But then some of these facilities have learned that if you give them the purpose of, sweeping up the rooms or changing the bedding of other people in their room or in their floor, they all of a sudden feel they have a purpose and they live longer and they're happier and they're engaged because they have something that they're a part of outside of just themselves, right? So that's some of the areas we're focused on. We're focused on those areas today because we feel we can make an impact on them. And as we grow, we may add different areas that may change as our world and our exposure and our resources change. But that's what we're focused on. And we want to encourage, that's what my podcast Impact is about, is encouraging people, whether it's the 4 causes we're focused on. We love people want to get aboard and help us work on these causes, but whatever it is that you're motivated on, whatever area you think you can leverage your skills, your abilities, your knowledge, your relationships to make an impact, to do so. And to make your life more about just achieving more wealth and driving a nicer car and having a bigger house and going on a nicer vacation, et cetera. So,
man, there's so much there. And I think I had like 15 questions throughout, and I'm like rearranging them and trying to figure out.
I kind of get going there. And
no, dude, it's awesome, man. And we're big, we're big mindset folks and action takers. And I'm just thinking through, because I think you hit on so many things there, and I love how you touch on the social media and the connection. I just read a book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, and I had to get beyond the title. And when I did, I started listening to it and all the F bombs that they drop in there. But man, the message to it was so, like, I listened to it twice. I drove to San Diego for spring break with my kids and family. And then on the way back, I listened to it again because I'm like, man, there's a lot of like really good nuggets. And a lot of things you're talking about remind me of, like he talks about the feedback loop from hell, right? And that's a lot of people going and they feel miserable about themselves. So they go to social media to find connection. And then all you see is these like people posting their perfect lives. And so now you have this feedback that's reinforcing this negative view of yourself. And there's not really connection there. That's not really your friend. Nobody has 500 friends for real. Stu doesn't even have one friend for real. Like, I mean, these are all things, right? And so, it's so important. And it also talks about, which this is where my mind was going with you, is a lot of those loops or a lot of those mediums also show the end result. They show the okay, I made it, right? They show the Bezos is a multi-billionaire, but they don't show the 20 years of Amazon losing money. They don't show the stress. They don't show all the hard work that went into it. They just show the pinnacle. And I'm curious. So we kind of got the pinnacle. Like, how did you, like, there's a lot in there, man. Like, how did you, like, what was that? What did that shift look like? Because I think for me, it's very intriguing how you went from, and I know your story. What you presented, you didn't come from, it wasn't like a riches to riches story, right? You didn't come from this incredibly, you didn't come from a background that anybody would assume that you were going to reach this level of success. So I'm just curious, like that whole evolution of you and your business to get to this point where you guys have these 4 points, man, those 4 points I imagine took you a while to come up with. It's not like You're like, oh, brilliant light bulb. We're going to do affordable housing crisis, jobs, legacy crisis, and happiness. Like that stuff takes so much time. And I'm just curious on that evolution and how you got to that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to hit it in a couple angles. So first is I want to share, and I know you guys I forget the exact tagline, but faith, family, and financial freedom, something like that is your kind of tagline of focus on your podcast. And we call it, as you heard me say at the event, the 8 F's of life, which are F's as well: faith, family, friends, freedom, fun, fulfillment, fitness, and finance. And I believe real success is when you're achieving success in all of those areas at the same time. And I believe, and look, we're all very blessed to be in this country and build up businesses in our careers at this point in time, right? 50 years ago, it was a lot harder if you were trying to grow your career, where you had to be in the office. You couldn't go home and work, right? You had to be in the office to get your work done. Where today we have this ability with technology to work from anywhere and to have more integration. So I believe the saying of work-life balance is completely wrong. And Jeff Bezos, you just quoted, kind of mentioned, said this himself a few months ago. He said the concept of a work-life balance is a debilitating term. He said it's actually more like a circle, and we call it work-life integration. And the way I like to think about it, to use like a sports analogy, is so there's these 8 F's of life: faith, family, friends, freedom, fun, fulfillment, fitness, and finance. And so I kind of think in a baseball term. So if I'm only working on one of these areas in any time or any activity or any part of my life, that's a single. If I can work on 2 of them at the same time, that's a double. If I can work on 4 at the same time, that's a home run, right? So I want as much of my time filled with home runs as possible. So I'm trying to integrate all the areas of my life at the same time. And I can give lots of different examples of that. But today I have 3 kids, 10-year-old boy, all boys, 10-year-old boy, about to be a 9-year-old boy, and then we adopted a baby boy 6 months ago now. He's 6 months and a couple of weeks old. And so if I wish I could say, my kids are young today, so I haven't yet proven that my belief in how I'm raising them to be humble and to be driven, and now they are growing up in an environment of privilege, that they're not going to be a-holes, and they're going to be successful men living lives of significance, right? And that's the hope. So I spent a lot of time the last many years thinking about, both from most importantly, frankly, because of my role as a father, wanting to make sure I'm raising my kids with the right values and the right beliefs, and that I'm instilling as much as I can the kind of drive and ambition and motivation and good values that we all want our kids to have, right? And to your point, I grew up with parents who had me at 16 years old, and we grew up, poor is the simple word to use, right? We never went, everything was from a yard sale. We struggled to make ends meet every month. I'm the oldest of 5. We had nothing, which you would expect 16-year-old parents, right? And so that drive is, it's easy to have that drive, and so when there's no option, right? If I wanted something, I had to earn for it, right? So it was easy to create that drive per se. But I have 4 siblings, and they have different levels of drive and motivation, and have achieved different levels of success, right? So, but my kids are growing up in a different environment, so I want them to of course have this drive. So still figuring out some of the nature versus nurture, but what I have determined through the years, at least what I think I've determined, and what I focus on teaching to my kids, and what also I teach to adults and those who work in my organization and people part of our communities, is I've come up with what I consider the 5 keys to a life of significance, success, and happiness. And the cool thing about these 5 keys is they're all choices. They're all decisions to do or not to do. And for each of us, we might come to be at a different place in our journey, that some may be harder than others, but these are all decisions. And the first one is intentionality. And I believe intentionality is the foundation of success. The foundation of living a life of significance is having an intentional focus around all areas of life. So again, I call them these 8 F's of life: having intentional goals, intentional purpose, intentionality around everything we do, and intentional around who we do those things with, right? So equally important is what I'm going to do, but who I want to do it with, who I'm going to do life with. So give a little kind of example. So my wife and I ran a young family small group at our church for a bunch of years. And I get these young families who would come in who with a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old or whatever, right? Young people in their 20s and generally, and they'd be so worried am I making the right decision? My kid did this and I yelled at him, or I did this, or I took away this privilege, or, so worried if they were making the right decision, right? Am I being a good parent? Did I handle this correctly? And I would often think to myself, and at times I would say as well, the fact that you're showing up Sunday morning at 8 a.m. to small group at church, you're probably doing a pretty good job, right? Because you're intentionally focused on being a good parent. You're thinking about it. You're worrying about it. You're reading books about it. You want to be better. You intentionally are saying, hey, I want to be a great parent, right? The people who aren't doing as good of a job of parenting aren't at small group church. They're not thinking about how do I become a good parent, right? It's not in their conscience, right? They're not paying attention to that. And I think that same thing applies to each of the areas of our life. If you're intentionally focused on getting better at it, you're going to probably do more good than not, and get closer to your goals than further away. So that's kind of what it all starts for me. The second big thing, and you guys talk a lot about this, is having clear purpose. And so first, having intentionality in your life is the foundation, and then intentionality around everything from what is your purpose, what your why, what are you doing, what are your goals, right? The third is goals, and we're very big on goal setting here at DLP and in my life, and setting big long-term goals, things like big, hairy, audacious goals, to take a Jim Collins term, and we have those we have a big, hairy, audacious goal in our family. I have a big, hairy, audacious goal in my personal life. I have big, hairy, audacious goals at work. Then mid-range type goals. We set 5-year, 10-year checkpoints. We encourage everybody in our organization to have a 1-year living fully dashboard, which is having goals across each of these 8 areas of your life. And we have a whole framework to how you go and you assess your life across the 8 F's. So make sure you're setting goals around the areas that you need to put work in on, right? If I'm in the greatest shape in the world, and I've got an 8-pack, and I've got a 52 resting heartbeat, and I run marathons every Sunday, right? I probably don't need to set any goals this year on health, because I got that pretty dialed in, right? But that's where we naturally set goals on. And that's why we're so good in those areas, right? If my faith is out of line, I'm not connected with the Lord, I probably need some goals around that, but that's not where I naturally think to set goals. Hence why that area of my life is not in order. So we set top goals for our lives every year. And then we break down our goals into what are our top goals every 90 days? What are we going to get done in the next 90 days? And then we break that down into what are the habits and disciplines that we need to incorporate into our time? And then often what needs to come out of our time, right? And what do we need to stop doing in order to do more things we want to do? So that's sort of where the rubber meets the road. So goal setting is number 3. So intentionality, purpose, goal setting. The 4th key to success and significance and happiness is grit. And this is what I'd say I spent the largest amount of my time trying to instill in my kids since they were 2 till this past year. And now I've kind of put more focus on the last one I'll get to in a second, but grit is, passion and perseverance towards long-term goals. I love another way to define grit is talent times effort equals skill. Skill times effort equals results. So effort counts twice. And so the mindset around grit, and teaching it to our kids or anybody is praising the behaviors, the activities that will generate the results, right? So my kid, I coach my kids' sports, and I've been coaching flag football for 4 years now, 3 seasons a year. It's big. Both my older kids are on the team, and we've won the championship 2 years in a row, and we won this past Saturday 59-0, right? So it's easy. And one of my sons is superstar on the team, and he had 5 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and so it's easy as a parent to say, hey, Donnie, you're talented, man, you're skilled, man, you're athletic, man, you're fast, right? And to praise that, right, and to give him lots of pats on the back for this big game, right? I try my darndest. Sometimes as a proud father, right, you do a little bit, but I try my hardest to not praise the end result, but to your point earlier, but to praise the activity, right? So I want to praise, like if I see, hey, he did a better job of flag pulling, and he squared the guy up, and he did what we've been practicing, and saying, hey, I really noticed how what we've been practicing the past week. I saw you do it out there twice, and Mom told me she saw you outside in the yard Thursday and Friday out there practicing that with your brother for hours. And man, I see how that work paid off. I'm really proud of you for how hard you worked, right? Or when he gets a great grade on a test, right? Man, I'm really proud of how hard you've been studying, how hard you've been working, right? getting them to understand that it's the effort that will lead to the result. So I praise the effort, right? As parents, we want to tell our kids they're so smart, they're so handsome, they're so beautiful, the things that they don't control, right? I want to praise the behaviors that lead to the results. And then when they want to give up and they want to quit, you don't let them. Let me give one more super quick story here. I was coaching my kids in basketball a couple weeks ago, and my same son is the second best kind of dribbler on his team, and the other kid's way better. And we played this team who were giants. My kids are in third or fourth grade. These kids, one kid was almost 6 foot tall, and they were big, and the kids were scared.
Give us your birth certificates. We don't believe
exactly.
Yeah.
One kid was as big as I am. I'm not that big, but anyways, the kids got nervous, and our point guard got so nervous he kind of faked a bellyache. Maybe he had a bellyache, but he faked. I forget what he said he had, but he got so nervous he came out of the game, and his dad was kind of pissed, who was my other coach, and his mom's over cuddling him and making him feel better, right? So my son had to take over as point guard, and the reason the kid got nervous because he kept getting the ball stolen from him. So now my kid's out there, and he gets the ball stolen from him. He turns it over like 6 times in like 1 quarter, right? He's feeling embarrassed. He's nervous every time he's got the ball. Kids are taking the ball from him, right? And he looks like he's going to cry. He's faking kind of a stomach ache himself. His knee hurts, right? He desperately
the mysterious stomach ache that took out all your point guards.
Desperately wants me to say, Donnie, do you want to come out of the game so he can run out of the game and get this pressure off of him, right? But as a parent, especially those raising our kids in privilege, right? It's like you want to coddle your kid, and you want to help keep them from avoiding struggle, right? And that was a moment it hit me like, this struggle is good for him. Like, he needs to feel this struggle, right? He needs to figure this out. He needs to handle this himself. And I didn't let him come out of the game, and he dealt with it. And he wasn't, proud of his game, but he was proud that he stayed in there and he kept working, and he had to give him some moments to calm down, but, kept out there, right? That's how you instill grit, right? So intentionally thinking about, how do I instill these levels of grit? My kid's not going to be the spoiled, privileged kid who expects everything to be handed to him, right? And then the last key to success, and this is one I've been working on my kids the most since I read this great book. So Grit by Angela Duckworth, phenomenal book. And then the next book that I read, we read as a company, and we read a book every month together as a company, was called Mindset by Carol Dweck. Phenomenal book. And so she talks about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So the 5th key to success is a growth mindset. And the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, to stick with the kid theme, you could have 2 kids who are both really driven, motivated. They want to get great straight A's. They want to do really great at school, right? And they both study hard, and they both take a test. And they both get 70s, let's say. The kid with the growth mindset, when he gets a 70, he wants to know, what questions did I get wrong, so that next time he can get them right? Because if somebody with a growth mindset believes, hey, I might not know this today, but I can learn anything if I'm willing to put forth the work, right? Somebody with a fixed mindset gets that same 70, might have worked just as hard. They're going to be upset, frustrated, but they're going to be thinking, this isn't fair. The teacher didn't teach us the right things. I'm just not good at this. I just don't know how to do this. This is not something I know how to do. This is just hard, right? They think, there's nothing I can do about it. That's just who I am. That's how I did it, or it's somebody else's fault. They're not wanting to know what I got wrong so I can get better, right? That difference of that belief that, hey, I might not be good at something today, but if I'm willing to put forth the work and learn, I can be great at anything I want. That I think is the most critical difference between success in general, and certainly instilling that at a young age is just so powerful. We do a cognitive assessment for all new employees who come in or apply to work at DLP, which tests your processing speed. And the score goes from 150 to 450. I had a guy recently get a 450, which is a perfect score. I've only had 20 people get a perfect score in 10,000. And so I'm sitting down with him, and actually just chatting with him right before we jumped on this meeting together. And so he got a 450. 20 people have ever gotten a 450, or who I've ever had do it. And what was his question to me? He says, are you able to find out which questions I got wrong? Right. He was sold. Like, awesome. I knew I was hiring him right then and there.
Yeah, right.
Like, nobody had ever asked me if they could find out what questions they got wrong. Nobody ever asked me that. He got a perfect score, yet he wanted to know which 7 questions he didn't get right. right? That's a growth mindset, right? So those are the keys that I've learned, and certainly at a young level. I don't know exactly, other than struggle and the need. What instilled some of the drive and some of these behaviors at a young age. This mindset of thinking I could learn anything and accomplish anything if I just work hard enough. That was in me before I read the book, right? But never had thought about it in that way before. But I believe if anybody makes the decision to be more intentional, to have purpose in their life, to set goals, to instill and grow grit, because if you believe in the growth mindset, you believe you can get better at anything. You can get more gritty. You can get more intentional. You can improve in anything if you're willing to put forth the work.
Dude, I have like a page full of notes here. What I love about podcasts is, we have guys like you come on, Don, and it's just like a school session for us. This is amazing, man. I love it. What's going through my mind is like, all right, how does a guy like Don, who has an amazing family, amazing dad, amazing husband, a follower of Christ, and runs a 450 person company, like coaches basketball and football teams, and is there for his kids, and like how do you do it all? Like how do you make it all work, and how do you have this personal, the 8 F's of compass, and like have it make it all work for you? Like what does your a day look like? What does your routine look like? I mean, are you up at 3 a.m. and hitting the ground running, or like, what are you doing every day?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we do something at DLP every year. We do it all year long, but we do this thing called Dream On. It's like a Make-A-Wish. So employees can submit dreams for themselves or family members or colleagues, and we try to grant dreams. And so we gave one of our property managers IVF treatment to be able to have a baby, and a truck, and special trips, and all kinds of things. And this one young kid who works for us, who's 22 years old, young analyst, a year out of school, his dream on request was to spend a day with me and to learn from me, right? So I did it yesterday.
That's awesome.
So yesterday he was with me. He was with me all day. And we flew yesterday to Pennsylvania, where we have an office here, from St. Augustine, Florida, and spent the day kind of in the office with me, and flew back. So spent a bunch of time with him yesterday. And he was, he was asking me that same question. And I told him, I said, look, a lot of people, I could tell them exactly what to do, exactly what I do, exactly how I spend my time. And most people then they might look at, he was flying in our plane, right? First time, right? Thought it was the coolest thing, never been in a private plane before, right? Like people can look at that and think, oh, this is so cool. And man, Don gets to go fly around in a jet and do all these fun things. But like most people wouldn't want to do the level of work I do every single day, right? And that's just the reality. Even if I said, just do exactly this and you're going to get almost the same results, right? Most people wouldn't want to do it. At the end of the day, even if they knew the output would be what they think they want, right? So, but to answer your question, so the 5 keys that I mentioned, that intentionality, I put that level of intention around every minute of my time, and that's the area I spend the most time being intentional about. Is how do I spend my time, right? It's this one resource that we all have the exact same amount of. Not one of us has any more of. And how I spend that time, and equally important, and what I've learned over the years is, even more important than what I spend my time on is what I choose not to spend my time on, right? So I look at any hour, any half hour, anything I put on my schedule, I'm saying no to a lot of other things that could be on my schedule, right? So there has to be great purpose. I have to be moving the ball towards one of my goals across the 8 F's of life with every minute of every time. Other than, I say this half jokingly, but it's true, other than the little bit of honey to do stuff that my wife convinces me to do every now and then, there's nothing I do that isn't exactly what I want to do right that minute, right? I'm very intentional, making sure I'm only spending my time on things that I feel are going to be impactful in at least one of the areas of my life. So, I start my day off, specifically, I start my day off at 5:30. So not super early, but 5:30. And I call it Miracle Morning, which I took from Hal Elrod, who, awesome. Wrote the foreword to my book. And so I follow that kind of methodology of, I start my morning with a walk with Jesus, I call it. I walk on a treadmill while I, read the Bible, and then I, do meditation, and I do prayer, and I work out, and I listen to an audiobook while I do all that, because I read about 3 books a week. That's one of the times I read, I listen to them. I do all that, and I start my day then by 7 a.m. I'm on my first alignment meeting with one of my direct reports every day at 7 o'clock. Right. And then I work hard till, 5:30, depending on the day. And then I'm either running to coach a kid's sport or coming home for dinner. And, 4 out of 5 days, I give myself freedom 1 day a week. 4 out of 5 days a week, I'm with my family by dinner time, either having dinner or doing sports and then dinner. every day. But then I got to do the discipline that once I get my kids to bed and spend a little time with my wife and have prayer with my kids and pray with my wife and so forth, and watch a little show with my wife, I get back and clean up and get prepared for the next day. And that's working from 8:39 to 10:30, 11:30. And I do that every day. I do that 360 out of 365 days a year. I spend those couple hours at the end of the day prepping for the next day, getting organized, clearing out my inbox. That routine that I do every day. There's a lot of days I'd rather just sit back and have a beer and relax. But I'd get behind. I wouldn't be able to do what I need to do. Right. And so I follow that kind of level of discipline to my schedule every day. And that discipline gives me freedom to focus on what I really want. Right. And freedom that if I want to go travel or take time off, I can, because I put this structure in place. So I'm a big believer in putting the structure and habits in place. And I started off at the beginning of the year. I start off with literally taking a Google sheet and I roll through every day of the year on a Google sheet. And then I map out, where am I going to be that day? What events do I have to go to? What events am I speaking at? What events am I running? What family vacations do I have? And we set a lot of goals. Like this year, we're going to go to 6 national parks. We're going to 6 new places. We're going to climb 6 of the top peaks in 6 different states. We're going to go to our top 52 countries by the time my oldest graduates school, which is in 8 years. So we're going to see 6 different countries every year. So we have all these different goals. Plus I run 10 different events a year. I speak at a bunch of different events, running a company. You have to incorporate all these things together, right? And look for opportunities that you can bring these things into and integrate them in your life. So I mapped that all at the beginning of the year and make sure all these different goals I've set around family travel and around work and so forth, they're all integrated into my annual calendar. And then I apply that over my, discipline I apply to each day. And it's nothing sexy. There's no major secret about it, but it's consistent. Certainly find different rhythms, different ways to tweak the schedule and maximize my time and find my natural, best productivity. But that's the general, secret is that discipline to how I set up my year. And then, the schedule I put in place, each day.
It sounds easy, dude. I don't see what the big deal is. Like, just do your map out every day at the beginning of the year. Hey, you said a couple things, and man, I tell you, I want to be conscious of your time too, because I could sit here and talk for hours with you. But you hit a couple things that I really liked in that your intentionality, and I think a lot of people miss step 1, and it's knowing what you want. So if you don't know what you want, if you haven't spent, which is homework, man, it is hard to create that vision. It's hard to be, create your clear purpose, as you called it, your point 2. But I think that people want to jump into this, to jump into the plane. Like they want to start at the plane level. And I'll tell you, man, it's so important. And I love how you hit on it, that it takes a lot of effort, one, to understand what you want. And that'll be fulfilling in and of itself to meet your purpose. But then you take the intentionality of the time spent to figure out what you want, and you build on the layers to that, right? You figure out, okay, well, now I need to be intentional to achieve these goals. What does that look like down to the minute? And what are my priorities? Is getting with the Lord in the morning. And then, you could see how you stack, right? We call it habit stacking. You could see how you stack it, right? You do your walk with you. So I ride the bike and I read the Bible. So you do your walk, you're reading the Bible, you're getting your PT in. I would love to say I listen to books. I'm very easily distracted, so I can't listen to a book and pump weight. So my guilty pleasure is some old school gangster rap. I'm just throwing that out there. but I can't listen to books, so I do that. But building all that stuff in is so important. And then that's how you get that freedom. That's how you get to the plane level. That's how you get, and the plane becomes for a young guy, I'm sure he's like, oh, this is so cool. For you, it's a necessity. Yeah. You have to be able to have access to that plane to get to do the things to achieve all the goals that you've already spent years setting up, and discipline to apply. And I think that's just so important. And I love it, man. I think it's beautiful that you framed it that way, because it takes a lot of effort. It's not easy.
It does, and it takes effort as well. And I said this a couple of times, but be very specific here. It's really important that you have, who you want to do life with, and the first person there, other than the Lord, right, is your significant other, right? So I lay out these plans and these goals. So we use tools, which we gladly send to anybody. We teach these openly. We have a tool called the Personal Compass and a tool called the Family Compass that we we put a lot of time and focus around setting our goals together as a family and having buy-in of my significant other. So big example is, we cyber school our kids. And that's not for everybody, right? But for us, my wife, I'm very fortunate. My wife, and I would love to say this was part of a master plan. It wasn't. But my wife was an elementary school teacher prior to us having kids, so she's well equipped for it. But we cyber school our kids, and like, so traveling. People say, well, how could you possibly travel to 52 countries? Like, I'm going in January, February, March to New Zealand and Fiji and stuff for 10, 11 straight weeks to live there, right? I can do that because we've committed as a family, to cyber school, right? And that's a family commitment. It's the biggest commitment for my wife. But heck, I spend a lot of Sundays, I'm spending 3-4 hours, teaching math or science, right? To give my wife a breather, right? But that's a family commitment that we know that we needed to do if we wanted to really be able to live this life of travel and exploration and so forth. This is a commitment we had to make, and we made it, a couple of years ago, and it's given us this freedom, right? But that's laying out these goals. We call this living fully dashboard, or like, what are the goals that I have this year? What are my long-term goals? And how do I get that into my calendar, right? And it's this iterative process of constantly saying, hey, what do I really want to accomplish? What do I want my life to look like? And how do I build that into my calendar, right? What has to come out for that to come in, right? And it takes time, it takes effort, but if you're intentional about it, right, it evolves over time as you work on it.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's one of our biggest challenges that we're working through, because we want to spend significant amount of time. We're Stu and I both hitting our 20-year mark in the military, and we've had some amazing opportunities to do adventures, right? And our families have all been part of that. So Stu and I were stationed in Italy to get, just by pure chance and God's blessing, we were stationed in Italy together. So the adventures we had in Italy, and that was like a 2-year adventure of Croatia and all these different amazing trips. And now we're like, hey, I'd really love to go spend a month, maybe 2 months or whatever. I mean, I love 11 weeks, in these other places. And it's trying to figure out the kid piece of it, and the school, right, and the sports. And do the kids come out of sports? Do they do sport? Like, all those things are so important. But I think your idea of the family compass and the whole family has buy-in into that is a pretty amazing way to go about that.
And one quick note there. So, and that's awesome. Yeah, those are all the challenges, right? As the kids get older, it only gets harder, right? Which is what makes it, it's like the sooner you do it, the better, because it just keeps getting harder and harder, right? So that's, one thing we had to just commit to going January, February, March is, hey, we're going to miss the first football season of the year. We're always doing 2 sports at a time. And it's like, we're going to miss a season. So I haven't finalized it yet, but we're going to work to do at least one of our kids' sports, basketball or football, generally that time of year, in New Zealand, right? So we're going to sign up for a season and let them get to do it in a new country, and get that immersion into a different culture, which will be pretty cool. But a quote that I say all the time here at DLP, that I just love is, many have the will to win, very few have the will to prepare to win. And, I think so many people confuse the two, right? Many people are driven. They want to be successful. They're willing to work 100 hours a week. They're willing to work hard, right? But they want to work hard on the reactionary stuff, just doing lots of activity, right? The real success comes from the preparation, right? So, yes, we're going to have a lot of fun in New Zealand, right? But right now I'm doing the preparation. I've already booked this. I've got the houses booked. I'm figuring out sports. I'm doing all this preparation to make sure that this is this incredible experience for 11 weeks across the country, right? It takes a lot of work in advance. That's the real work. It's less time in the scheme of things than we'll ever spend playing is in the preparing, but it takes that level of work, that preparation, that planning, that goal setting, to really be in a position to then go out and really win, and win at what winning means for you, right? Really being clear on what winning is for you.
Yeah, I would just say one thing too, as you're booking these houses, make sure you can accommodate at least five additional people. Just a planning consideration.
Don, you don't want the Gutierrez's.
Yeah, you do, man. The Gutierrez is not
chaos.
A party.
It is a chaos.
I love it.
Yeah, dude, Don, this has been amazing, man. I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, obviously, and I feel like I am a much better human being after this hour of conversation with you. So I really appreciate it. I'm fired up. So before we get off, I want to make sure that everyone knows how to get your book, one, how to listen to your podcast too, and then just in general, where's the best place to get more information about your company and what you're doing?
Yeah, appreciate that. So the book is called Building an Elite Organization. You can download it, of course, anywhere you buy books. I did record the audio version. You can get that on
Nice.
Audible or Libro for those who do like to listen to audiobooks. And then you can go to DLP, David, Lisa, Peter, Elite, ELITE, DLPelite.com. You can download a bunch of these free resources like these personal compass and family compass and such, and a lot of other stuff there for free, no cost. And also get the book. And then the podcast is called Impact with Don Wenner, and you can of course get that anywhere you listen to podcasts. So anybody wants to reach out direct, you can find me on most social media. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier that TikTok's bigger than Google now. I don't have a TikTok account, but most social media, you can reach out for sure as well, and look for the opportunity to connect.
That's awesome, man. Well, we really appreciate you. We'll put all those links in the show notes, and man, this is awesome, man. Dave, you got anything else for us?
Yeah. Hey, Don, before we go, I just want to encourage you, man. I love your vision. I love your willingness to be real to who you are, to honor your faith, to honor your family, your business, your team members. I know that, actions speak louder than words, right? And the fact that you're putting this stuff, your faith into play, and I think people like you, I was just talking to someone yesterday and reminded me, we had the guy from the High Pointers on the podcast. So that'll be coming out. You reminded me of that when you're hitting the highest points of, but one of the things we talked about is just, the fact that, folks like you are not going to recognize the true impact and influence you've had until you get to heaven. And I think, just from the perspective of your employees being able to, that kid, you may have changed his life. No may about it. You changed his life in a way that most people cannot reach in and touch somebody. So I just want to encourage you to keep it up, man. There's guys like Stu and I that take notice immediately and are just so encouraged that there's dudes like you out there that are honoring your faith and your family and your love, and just being an amazing steward of what you've been blessed with, but then taking that, taking those 10 talents and multiplying to those who much have been given, more you're going to continue to be a good steward, and more will be given. And so I just am so stoked for this time, and thank you for spending it with a couple of knuckleheads like Stu and I.
Well, appreciate that. And if you don't mind, I'd love to just wrap up with a quick little story. We joked behind stage before we got on about a failure, which I have a cool little story of that I learned, a great lesson, but a kind of an example of a quick failure here to wrap up with. So somebody recently, I was on a Zoom meeting, really successful individual who was kind of telling his story, and for some reason he felt compelled to give a lesson about trust. And I don't really know why he started doing this, but it was meaningful to me. And I've told this a couple of times. This was a few weeks ago, and he explained that trust has 3 parts to trust. And so I was doing a family meeting with my kids a Sunday night coming back from Puerto Rico 2 weeks ago, and we were doing a family meeting, and I asked my kids, what do you think trust means? And they said the first of 3 components, which is what most of us think about, which is, they said honesty. Which is the first component, honesty, right? Doing what you do, telling the truth, right? And that's what most people think about trust. It's being honest, telling the truth. That's the first piece. The second piece is competency. And I never thought of that way. And it was such a great eye opener for me. So honesty is the first component. The second is competency. And the third is follow through. So example of competency. So, and you think, how does that have to do with trust, right? So honesty, telling the truth, and then 2, be competency. So we were in Puerto Rico. We were out on this little catamaran boat taking my kids fishing, and I'm out with this, fishing captain on this little boat, and we're maybe 100 yards off the coast, not very far. And one of my kids says to me, he says, "Dad, how deep do you think the water is here?" And I said, "Oh, it's probably about 500 feet deep." And I just took a guess. It sounded like a good number to me. And the fishing captain says to me, he says, "Actually, this is the second deepest point in the ocean in the world. It's 29,000 feet deep."
Wow.
And we're 100 yards off the coast, right? It's the deepest place in the Atlantic Ocean, second deepest in the world, 29,000 feet deep, right? So it's an example I told my kids then, like I, look like an idiot because I was way off, right? But I wasn't competent. I had no idea how deep the water is. I just, used an educated guess, right? And I was way off, right? I wasn't being dishonest. I wasn't like lying to them. I knew it was 29,000, but I told them 500 for some reason, right? So that was a great kind of lesson on the importance of competency to build trust. And then the third is follow through, right? Is doing what you say you're going to do. And an example of that would be is if I told my kids, hey, on Sunday, we're going to go to Dave & Buster's or something, right? And got them all excited. We're going to go to Dave & Buster's, and we talk about it all week. And I plan to take them to Dave & Buster's, but then Sunday morning, urgent client fire comes about, and I'm on the phone call, and they say, hey, Dad, can we go to Dave & Buster's? And I say, sorry, guys, I got to work, right? I didn't follow through and do what I say and do. I'm gonna break that trust, even though I wasn't trying to be dishonest, but I didn't follow through on what I said I was going to do. So it was a great reminder and a great lesson to me on the three important parts of building trust: honesty, competency, and follow through. So great lesson that's impacted me these last few weeks, and love to share out. So appreciate your time, guys. Been a great opportunity.
Yeah, hey, Don, real quick before you go, if you take your kid to the top of something they're afraid of, like a water slide, and then because you want them to experience it, you push them down it, knowing they'll have fun. Is that like, where does that fit into trust? Is that a good or a bad? I don't know.
I think as long as they end up having fun at the end, I think that's
you're teaching grit, right?
Then I nailed it. I nailed it.
Teaching grit.
Exactly.
Don, this is awesome, man. Hey, guys and gals, go check out Don's website, dlpelite.com. Get all the free resources. Go read his book, listen to his podcast. We'll put all those in the show notes. And hey, subscribe to this podcast, share it with someone that feels is meaningful to you. And most importantly, go fill your storehouse.
Yeah, make it a great day, friends. And I challenge all our listeners, be intentional about figuring out what it is that is important to you today. One takeaway, figure that out. And I think it'll be very beneficial.
Good stuff.
Peace.
See you. Thanks, Don.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to Filling the Storehouse. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe and share it with someone you love. And if you really felt inspired, leave a 5-star review so we can continue to grow and help other Christian entrepreneurs fill their storehouse. If you're interested in creating financial freedom through real estate investing, be sure to check out our website at storehouse310turnkey.com. We'd love to serve you through our platform of Building the Kingdom. Just click on the contact link and we'll reply to you as soon as we can. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go fill your storehouse and make it a great day.